90% of the time when you listen to people who don't really like you and they try to put you down, well, you will never do the things that you want to do. So I have battled with putting this out there for the longest time. It's about pain, and it's about detachment, it's about anger, and I just wanted someone else to hear what I have to say about it. Because I think sometimes when you detach from what you're feeling, you stop giving it your energy, and that is why I wrote How to Detach Without Becoming Cold. They say that time heals. Cute, really. That is a lie. A gift-wrapped lie with a bone top handed to you by people who had the privilege of forgetting their pain before it finished eating them alive. Time doesn't heal anything. Time is a distraction mechanism. It gives you enough noise, enough motion, enough Tuesday afternoons to fill you so that you forget, for stretches, that the wound is still there, waiting, patient, like it has somewhere to be and nowhere to rush to. And then something triggers it. Then it comes back. It comes back rushing, all of it, the full weight, the original pain plus interest. So if you ask me, time does not heal anything. But let's not start there. Let me give you the truth first. I lost someone I had built an entire understanding of the world around. The most masculine presence I have ever known. The kind of man whose existence made me feel like the ground was solid, like there was an order to things, like someone out there had the answers and was holding them for me until I was ready. A lover, a provider, a standard which measured everything else quietly without me even realizing I was doing it. My father. And then in real time, not in a story, not in a film, not in someone else's cautionary tale, I watched that value collapse from 100 to 0 faster than I was ever prepared for. Do you know how sad it is to see someone that you have always ranked at 100 switch up, and then that value just dies? Because now you wonder, was it real? I'm not here to perform grief for you. I don't need your sympathy, and frankly, you don't need mine. What I'm here to tell you is what I discovered on the other side of that collapse. What I found when I stopped trying to fight the anger, the pain, the resentment, and started asking a different question entirely. How do I stop feeling this? That was the question that I'd asked myself for a really long time. But then I switched it up and I started asking, what do I do with it? See, anger is one of the most powerful emotions the body can generate. People spend entire lifetimes in a losing battle with it. They medicate it, they spiritualize it, they suppress it until it surfaces as something else entirely. Illness, numbness, a low hum of bitterness that follows them in every room. What if you stopped giving it a hold of your life? Not by fighting it, not by performing forgiveness, but something far more radical, by simply removing its authority over your decisions. That is detachment. And before you confuse it with coldness, because you might, let me make it a clear distinction. Coldness says, I don't feel. Detachment says, I feel, but it no longer drives my decisions. The gap between those two statements is everything. Here's where it gets uncomfortable, because pain at a certain threshold stops feeling like pain. Have you ever been so far inside grief that you crossed some invincible line and ended up on the other side of it? You're not crying anymore, you're not breaking anymore, you're just floating. And this is not just grief because someone died. It could be grief of just losing someone, a partner, a friend. It could be grief over anything. But you stop feeling the pain. You grow numb. so deeply sad that the sadness itself becomes a kind of high for you. That is the danger zone. That is where people stop healing and start living inside the wound. So familiar with the ache that they confuse it for identity. They no longer know who they are without the anger, without the resentment, without the story of what that has done to them. It has become the most honest thing about them, and nobody warns you about this part. Nobody tells you that the danger isn't falling apart. The danger is learning to be comfortable in the ruins and calling it peace. Somatic therapists know this. The body keeps score. That is not a metaphor, it is literal biology. Pain lives in tissue. Grief stores itself in the chest, in the jaw, in the back of the throat. The release of it, when it finally comes, is one of the most profound physical experiences the human body can undergo. Not emotional, physical, because it was always physical. We just weren't taught that. Which is precisely why detachment cannot be achieved by simply deciding to detach. That is not how the body works. You cannot think your way out of something you survived your way into. So then how? How do we do it? You start by separating your emotion from action. Not killing the emotion, not performing indifference, not building a wall that everyone around you will call strength. But you know, well, you're not strong. But you will know it's fear. It is just fear with better posture. It's not strength. You let that feeling exist. You sit in it. You stop trying to negotiate with it. You stop rushing it. You stop explaining it. Your behavior, your responses, your choices, your movements through the world, those answer to a different authority, not the feeling, but to your stability, to your future, to the life that you're building with or without the cooperation of people who hurt you. You stop building stories to soften the reality. This is the one that will cost you the most, because stories are warm. They are our last act of love. That is the last act you perform to someone who no longer deserves it. The interpretations that keep them human in your mind, that explain away the consistency of their behavior, that transform what they do into something you can accept. He was overwhelmed, he means well, he will understand one day. Beloved, he showed you what he does consistently. That is data. The story is something you wrote on top of it because the data was too painful to hold without softening. Detachment begins when you read the data without the annotation. The most important part, and the part that nobody tells the women I know, your softness is not the problem. Let me say it again. And this is not just for the women, because I know you have been told otherwise, implicitly and explicitly, by everyone who watched you give and give and give and then blamed the giving. Your softness is not the problem. Let me say that again. Your softness is not the problem. The direction of it is. The softness was never wrong. The softness going to people who are inconsistent with it, that was the wound. That was where the loss was happening, quietly over time, before you even knew you were losing anything. So redirect it. Give it to your life. Give it back to your work. Give it to things that are building towards something instead of bleeding into something that has already gone. That is like you're spending energy on something that is not going to build you or mold you in any way. Detachment includes grief. This is a non-negotiable. You don't get the peace without the passage. There will be days that feel like stepping backwards, the longing, the disappointment, the moment at 2 a.m. when the feelings return without a warning and you're furious at yourself for feeling it. Let it exist. A feeling is not an instruction. It is not a directive. It does not require a response. You can be sad without contacting someone. You can miss someone without reopening the door. You can grieve the version of a person or a version of yourself without canceling everything that you have built.